Now at 10, this is Fox 61, Connecticut's news station.
We really made some great progress today.
I would like to hope that the agreement that we've reached together will help us bring closer that goal and will pave the path towards peace.
After some strong talk that he wanted a ceasefire in Ukraine agreed upon today, President Trump, as you heard, said he is nevertheless happy with the progress made towards one, even as no agreement has been reached yet. Thank you for joining us here for the Fox 61 News at 10 o'clock. I'm Tim Lammers. Now, today's meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska was likely not going to end the war between Russia and Ukraine, at the very least because Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky wasn't even a part of the discussion. But what progress was made? While public details are still sparse, Putin said an understanding was reached, while President Trump said there are still points that need to be agreed on. Here's Connor Hansen with more.
Talks between President Trump and Russia's Vladimir Putin lasted for nearly 3 hours. The two leaders agreed they'd like to stop the fighting in Ukraine and restore Russia-U.S. relations, but there was no mention specifically of an immediate ceasefire. President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin began their high-stakes summit with a handshake, but ended without a ceasefire in Ukraine.
I will call up the various people that I think are appropriate, and I'll, of course, call up President Zelensky and tell him about today's meeting. It's ultimately up to them.
We need to eliminate all the primary causes of that conflict and agree with President Trump that, naturally, the security of Ukraine should be ensured as well.
After greeting one another at Elmendorf Air Force Base, the two leaders took President Trump's limo to the summit site where they spoke for more than 2.5 hours. President Trump says he wouldn't accept anything less than a ceasefire during Friday's talks. To end the fighting, Moscow has called for an end to Western weapons shipments to Ukraine and demanded Kyiv give up territory as part of any potential peace deal.
There were many, many points that we agreed on, most of them, I would say, a couple of big ones that we haven't quite gotten there, but we've made some headway.
Trump suggested there will likely have to be some give and take on boundaries, but Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says Ukraine won't give up any territory captured by Russia during the war.
We hope for a strong position from the U.S. Everything will depend on this. The Russians respect American strength alone.
There was no word on a second meeting involving Zelensky, though President Trump said he'd be calling him shortly after the summit. Both Trump and Putin suggested they would be speaking again soon, Putin even inviting Trump to visit Russia. In Anchorage, Alaska, Connor Hansen, Fox 61.
Oh, Connor, thank you. All right, so the question is, who got more out of the meeting, or at least got what they wanted? We spoke with Matthew Schmidt, a foreign affairs expert and professor at the University of New Haven. He specializes in Russia and Ukraine. He said, in a way, Putin got a win before the talks even started.
It was a huge win for Putin, and Trump knew it. If you looked at his body language when he came out for that press conference, he looked sullen. Symbolically, this was a huge win to do it in Alaska. The Russians call it Russian America, which evokes the idea of Russia and Ukraine, which was all over the Russian press. Putin got what he wanted here, which is that he came off as the person in charge.
Well, just days ago, Trump said Russia would face, quote, very severe consequences, end quote, if Russia wasn't serious about trying to end the war. Well, Professor Schmidt said the president not mentioning any consequences in the post-summit press conference was, in his words, a glaring silence.
He sees an advantage to snubbing him. The story that Putin tells himself, and critically the story that he sells to his population in order to support the war, is that it's not really a war with Ukraine, that Ukraine is a proxy for the West, and therefore his attention should be with the leader of the West, right, the president of the United States, and not Zelensky. And he doesn't want to put Zelensky on that podium with him as a kind of equal.
Well, we do have full coverage of today's historic event on Fox61.com and on the free Fox 61 News app. On to local news here. A fire at a homeless encampment this morning ended with one person dead and another hospitalized. It started in the woods behind a store. Here's Fox 61's Alicia Hercules with more on what happened.
Crews were on scene for hours investigating the fire. The homeless encampment is in the wooded area behind the Lowe's parking lot. The fire department was first called when the store's fire alarm rang off. A community already navigating the difficulties of homelessness now must deal with even more loss.
Really upset that the experience of so many individuals just got more severe and worse.
Jennifer Paradis, the executive director of the Beth El Center, a homeless shelter in Milford, knew the person who died in the fire and the handful of others who lived at the encampment. She says she came to the scene to support others who lost their belongings in the fire.
This is their home. This is their home. This is where they felt safest. This is where they laid their heads. This is where their most precious belongings existed.
The Milford Police Department, along with the Milford Fire Department, initially responded to a smoke investigation at the Lowe's on Old Gate Lane. It was later upgraded to a fire investigation. The fire started at a small homeless encampment behind a wooded area near the store. Police say the victim was found dead. Another person was hurt in the fire and is recovering at the hospital. It's unclear if that person was also living at the encampment. A firefighter is also being treated for minor injuries. Milford Mayor Tony Giannatasio says he was shocked to learn of the fire.
I was notified that there was a fire at Lowe's, and I wasn't sure if it was Lowe's, the store, but apparently it's in the woods behind the store, close to the railroad tracks.
He says the deadly fire has struck deep in the community.
There's been a tragedy and someone lost their life.
The state police fire marshal is now investigating the cause of this fire. In Milford, Alicia Hercules, Fox 61.
Well, a rescue mission has unfortunately become a recovery mission for the body of a man who disappeared in Candlewood Lake in Sherman. Officials said the 55-year-old man jumped off a boat this afternoon and never resurfaced. The first call for help came in just after 2:30 p.m. Multiple state and town agencies rushed to the scene, including firefighters from several towns. But they called off the search at 8 p.m. They'll resume tomorrow morning around 8:30. Authorities are still urging the public to avoid the area. Well, right now through Labor Day weekend, local and state police have stepped up their efforts to remove dangerous drivers from Connecticut's roads before there's a deadly crash. Here's Fox 61's Stefan Reels to explain.
We are smack dab in the middle of some of the deadliest days on the road of the year. And with the school year starting in just a few weeks, extra police have been sent to the interstate to make sure people can make it to their destination safely. As roads crowd with drivers who want to enjoy the last of their summer, people are on high alert on the interstate. The upcoming Labor Day weekend rounds out the 100 deadliest days of the year for teenagers.
You have to watch out for everyone else.
For parents of new drivers like Christina Smitherman, a second set of eyes are a necessity for the summer road trip.
So we're driving up here from Virginia to visit a friend that lives up in Groton. Luckily, we're driving during the middle of the day, so I don't have to worry too much. But of course, at night, that's a whole different ball game.
We've been in accidents before, so I get very worried whenever everybody's like, stop, go, and I'm like, all right, guys, where are we going?
According to the latest data from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, more than 500 people died in traffic crashes nationwide over Labor Day weekend in 2023. 185 of those deaths involved a driver who was drunk.
These are preventable tragedies, and these are selfish decisions that people are making. No one's forcing them to get behind the wheel after they've had too much to drink.
Josh Morgan with the state's Department of Transportation says this is why drivers will start to notice more police on the road, all the ready to take impaired drivers off the road before there's an accident.
We're usually above the national average in terms of how much the percentage of our fatalities are connected to impairment. So if you're going to that picnic, if you're going to a barbecue, if you're going to an event, don't wait until you get there and it's the end of the night and you try to figure, how am I going to get home safely?
The biggest thing, according to Morgan, is plan ahead. Either designate a sober driver, be a good friend, and offer a drive to someone who might be impaired, or you can use your phone to find a rideshare app or find out the best schedule for public transportation. In Middletown, Stefan Reels, Fox 61.
New Haven police have released a sketch of the man who they say sexually assaulted a woman on a trail near Fort Hill Park last Saturday. Let's show it to you now. Detectives described him as Hispanic, about 5'6" to 5'7", with a medium build and in his late 30s to early 40s. They said he was last seen wearing a blue patterned polo, gray work pants, and dress shoes. Officials said the man had a box cutter and attacked the woman around 7:30 a.m. during her morning run. Please call the police if you think you recognize him, or at least if you can help with the investigation. The U.S. Justice Department is demanding that Connecticut and other places that they're calling sanctuary jurisdictions explain how they plan to comply with federal immigration enforcement efforts. The department said there could be legal consequences if they don't. In a letter, U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi gave Governor Ned Lamont and Attorney General William Tong until Tuesday to respond. Bondi warned that officials who obstruct immigration enforcement could face criminal charges. Now, Tong pushed back and called the claim false. He also said Connecticut is fully in compliance with federal law and is ready to defend itself in court. Well, a New York man has been sentenced to 40 years in prison, in which 21 will be served for sexually assaulting a 9-year-old from Trumbull. A jury convicted 32-year-old Nicholas Hall earlier this year on multiple charges. Prosecutors said Hall abused the trust that the victim's family gave him from 2018 through 2020. Prosecutors also praised the victim's courage for testifying during the trial. The case was handled by the statewide prosecution bureau and by Trumbull police. Now, Hall will also face 35 years of probation after he's released. A popular brunch spot in downtown Hartford is back open. The Place to Be reopened its doors after an abrupt shutdown earlier this month. The state's Revenue Service suspended operations at its West Hartford location over tax issues earlier this month. Court records also showed the business faced multiple evictions and unpaid rent claims across both Connecticut and Massachusetts.